Oh, did we start? Oh, wait. Hi, everyone. I am so excited to be here. I'm Colette Courtion, founder of Joylux, and I am joined by Dr. Juliana, whom I met, what was it, a month ago? We were at the...
in January, yeah.
In January, oh
yes,
my God.
yeah.
We were at the screening of Tamsin's movie, The M Factor, which if you have not seen, you must see. It was fascinating. And you play a part in this. You were on stage, you were answering questions, and I was just fascinated with your story and what you were sharing. So I was so excited when you said you would join us for Intimacy Evolved.
Great. It was so wonderful meeting you. It was a great event.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know if you remember, I hunted you down because I was like, I want to meet you. That your product and your company is just one I really stand behind. And it was just such a joy to meet you.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you. Well, first, let's start off by sharing with our audience a little about yourself and what inspired you to focus on sexuality and relationships.
Yeah, so by trade, I have 2 licenses. I'm a licensed professional counselor and a licensed marriage and family therapist. And one of the things I realized, especially when I went back and got my PhD and was focusing on couples and families, I realized that it was just unavoidable to have sex be part of what the conversations were. And I wanted to actually ask proactively people, and we had no training. I was lucky to have one class, and I took it.
All of our lives in this menopause world, no one's had any training.
No training. And so that was early 2000. I had that, and I actually just spoke at Boston University about a month ago to therapists in training, and I said, "Have any of you heard the word perimenopause or menopause in any of your schoolwork here?" And they said, "Not at all." One didn't even know what I was talking about, and they were about to graduate. It's like, oh, so much work to do to get us properly educated. But going back to like my interest in sexuality, I really just thought I can't help the whole person if there's a subject that feels off limits. And I realized too, like the education that I got was not just as a person wasn't enough and sufficient. And I found that I just had a comfort level with the topic that other people didn't have. And so I tried to like just mend both of them, and went back and learned on my own and really just did every class, every workshop, every certification that I could find. I did it and just started talking about it and normalizing it, and realized that especially women were really hungry to be asked about who they were as a sexual being, and to share and to hear other people's stories of celebration and of healing. And I needed it too. So it became just my passion. And love it.
I love that. So I disappeared for a second. So there was technical difficulty. So I hope everybody heard what you had to say, because it is a fascinating start to your career and where you are today. One thing I've heard a lot, your patients, colleagues talk to you about, they've said, you're like the best girlfriend a woman could have, but with a PhD. So tell us a little about your style and how that shaped the way people connect with you.
Oh, and I really always appreciate that description, because that's the goal that I want to have. I want it to sound like, and I want being able to talk about sexuality to be like you're talking to a friend, that you're not embarrassed to share the things that you want to ask, or the things that you like or you don't like, and that you can be your authentic self. That's the place I want to land with every person, and I want to have the information and the research to back what I'm saying in response to it. So I try to make things as accessible and normalizing as possible. And I say to my clients that I'm working with them, that when you can talk about your self-pleasure exercise with me, just like you would about what grocery list you just wrote up, then we have really achieved the comfort level that I'm looking for with this.
Oh, I love that. It reminds me too of when I'm sitting around with my girlfriends whom I've known for decades. And when we have those open conversations where we're talking about sex as if it's, the same as going shopping. And it's a level of intimacy that is so incredible, and you learn so much. So you add that with your your technical background, your technical knowledge, it is very powerful.
Yeah, I think the other thing too, and sometimes I hesitate to say this, but I think it also makes the point that I've had people say, "Wow, you don't look like somebody who would be in the sex world or being an expert on sexuality." And my first thought is like, there's no look to it.
No,
there's a stereotype, but there's a look to it. But I also think deeper than that is I'm perhaps I'm somebody who you wouldn't think with my background and who I am as a person would have this comfort level or would want to talk about it. So I'd like to say that it's an example of if I can, anyone can, and you can gain this. You don't have to be a professional expert in it to become really comfortable with who you are as a sexual being. And then when I tell people I started off as a kindergarten teacher, it's always really surprising to I have quite the career arc.
Well, that's actually a great segue to my next question is, okay, if you started off as a kindergarten teacher and then you went to, family counseling and now, sexual intimacy counseling, how did you adapt your style? When you're talking to different people, are you talking to the, 56-year-old woman the same way as your kindergarten kids?
And I don't work with kids now, but I did last year go to a middle school for the first time in a long time, and I taught a sex education course at a Montessori school, and I actually hadn't been that nervous in a long time, and I've spoken to crowds of thousands, and I was walking into 20 middle schoolers, and I was sweating, and I realized it really doesn't matter personality, setting, age. Everyone has a level of nervousness when the topic is put on the table. And so I name that and I say, I'm nervous too. And I've been in your shoes also. And even if I have a comfort level in this that's different than yours, I'm going to meet you where you are. And I've heard every story. And sometimes I try to add humor and to say, I haven't heard anything new in 5 years. So, everyone gets something if whoever can stump me or surprise me. And I say that just to make the point that all of who you are as a sexual being is welcome in whatever form that comes. And where you want to head is something that I find really exciting and curious. And if someone can feel that I genuinely think that I think it makes all the difference. And that's my kind of a general approach.
I love it. So before we get into the awesome questions that our Joylux customers have already sent in, and if you're listening and if you have any questions live, join the chat and we will try and get to them. We do have a long list of questions from our viewers already, so I'm excited to get into it. But before we do, you've said something to me that I just want you to explain a little more what you mean by it. You say that sexuality is the final frontier of personal development. So what does that mean?
Yeah. So, being in the therapeutic world, it's all about, knowing who you are and finding out the truth of you. And when I also acted, and I was in LA and working with an acting coach in a group. And she was a pretty tough actor, person, like coach on us. And you knew that if she asked you to do something, you do it, or like she's moving on and you've lost that opportunity. And we were in this group and I was the second person to go. And she said, what would be a scene that would be really scary for you to do? And the first person said something and I was like, oh, a sex scene. The next person looked at me and they're like murder. And the other one was like, all these horrible things. Yeah. And it started going around like, wow, like Juliana really why would that be so scary? And as soon as I realized that I was an outlier, I knew she was going to make me do a scene. And so she had me ad lib looking or trying to seduce somebody. It was disaster. It was mortifying. And she looked at me and she's like, fix it for the next time. And when I sat with that question, I was like, fix what and how and what does that mean? And I started realizing that a lot of what I'd learned as a sexual being was performative, and it didn't feel performative. I didn't think that's what I was doing at the time. But when I started really looking at the disconnect between the truth of who I was and how I was showing up and who I was trying to be for other people, that connected with my training as a therapist and self-discovery. And I thought, where do I go? Where do I go to find this or to fix this? And I couldn't find anyone. And I realized that in that self-discovery, there was, if I was to look at the pie chart of us, sexuality was blank. And now that I've been doing this for 20 years, I've realized that it's a lot, even the people who are gurus in the wellness industries and self-development, they'll avoid talking about sex, or they won't even do the work themselves. And it's usually the last place that people go. So the final frontier of self-development, because it's taboo, because there's not a lot of words for it, because our culture has a lot of values attached to people who look at it or talk about it. And because we have such a disrupted sex education, we just don't know how to talk about it. And it's whispers, and it's you can tell this person that thing, but you can't say that to that person. And you end up having this really, not even bifurcated, but just really disjointed view of who you are as a sexual being. And I became to go on a mission of helping people come up with a really concise way of knowing who you are as a sexual being. And hopefully I can change that it's the final place that people go.
I love it. Well, here at Joylux, we discovered that many years ago, and it is not taboo. And it's just part of our teams, who we are. We talk about it daily. We talk about, like you, there's not a question that hasn't been asked that we have not heard. So with that, let's dive into what our viewers are wanting to know from you. Yeah. So first,
can I say something? I really want to say again how grateful I am for your company, for you, for starting this, and what good you all are doing in the world, and even in just knowing that there's a need for this product, and not being afraid to step into this space. Whenever I meet anybody who has a comfort level in sexuality, I know you have thick skin. I know you have fought hard. I know that there's been so many hurdles for you to get to this place that you're sitting here now with a successful company that's doing such good in the world. I just want to honor that and just say thank you. It's really
thank you so much.
We need you.
And likewise, we need you. It is a village of people out there trying to change the world, as we say, one vagina at a time.
Yes.
But let me tell you, when women have a happy sexual relationship with themselves, with their partners, they thrive, the world thrives. So that's been our motto. So let's get into it. So Thank you for that. So what are some common myths you wish people would unlearn about sex, aging, and pleasure?
That as you age, that sex is not relevant to you, that you're not a sexual being, you're not going to want to have sex. It's definitely going to be off the top 10 of anything, and that it doesn't do anything for you. That's the number one thing I wish that we could unlearn. The next thing is I wish that it was a time that, like we've talked about in other parts of who we are as we're getting to mid-age, is really knowing who you are, and like the no F's given and all of that. I wish that this was a place that people felt excited to say, I'm really going to define who I am on my own terms as a sexual being, and I'm going to stop doing things I don't want to do, and I'm going to start seeking things that I do want to try, and that we move into a place that instead of our sexuality being shut down, it really gets to expand.
I couldn't agree with you more. The thought that you hit menopause or your older age and sex stops or it's no longer fun is absolutely not true. In fact, from personal experience, I think it only gets better. We as women, have with this age comes this wisdom and confidence. We know who we are. We know what we like. And we don't have time to, waste with the nonsense. So let's just get in and do it and do what we like, right?
Yes. Yeah. It's, have you seen the show Dying for Sex? Hulu recently. I really recommend it. I won't give, there's nothing I could say to actually give it away. It's really a journey that you experience, and everything that you need to know is in the title. But there's this scene as she's doing some sexual exploration that she's with somebody who's younger, and she's discovering what she wants and what she needs in the process of the show. But he says, oh, wow, I used to, when I'm with older women, they tell me what they like and what feels good and what doesn't. And I kind of tell me what you want. And I actually loved the subtle message in that, which was that as you get older, it's you, especially if you have been in an environment where you've been supported to discover what you like and what you don't like, then you have such a rich history to bring to either as a long-term relationship or a new one. And that can't be underestimated, the power of that.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Not to go too far here, but these cliches where you have the older men who are divorced and they go and find the young 20-year-old woman. And I'm like, what? They're fools. It's this 50-year-old woman who's going to really rock their world, not some 20-year-old. She doesn't know what she's doing.
Right. When I think back to some sexual experiences back in the day, I'm like, oh, I just want to say I'm sorry. I didn't know. I have improved. I know more now. And I agree that although I think this generation is more self-educated, I do think that it's a very big difference of knowing that you have the right to discover these things, and also the responsibility to discover for yourself what is right for you, what isn't. And I love talking about, like, you can't trust somebody's yes until you understand their no's. And that starts with you knowing what your yeses and no's and what brings you pleasure and what doesn't too. And as you get older and you do that in other areas of your life as well, it makes that transition in your sexual life easier too.
Absolutely. 100%. Okay. Next question we have from one of our viewers. How do you define a healthy sex life? Is it about frequency, desire, or something totally different?
So this will be a theme that in a lot of my answers is that I think healthy means agency. And the way I define agency is that you learn your terms, your yeses and nos, your yucks and your yums, and then you live them. So a healthy sex life to me, whether you are solo or you partnered or have partners, is that you are authentically asking yourself, do I want to do this? Do I not want to do this? Does this bring me pleasure? Does this not bring me pleasure? And you are a person that if you're interacting with somebody else, that they can say yes and no to you authentically. And you just see everything as a data point and something to be curious about, instead of it being like horrible and a failure and this is horrific. I also would add that a healthy sex life has a lot of humor to it. Because when you think about, sex is the weirdest thing, and it is messy and bizarre and noisy, and the base of it is just a weird thing. And if you can look at it in a light way like that, it makes a really big difference in how you approach it, and that you let yourself not do it in a perfect way. And I think if you're curious, it allows for a lot of expansion too. I like to talk about like no thank you bites, and that is rooted in the ability that you can say no, but you are interested in figuring out like where the edges are of your yes, of course with consent and with safety. And I think if you have that, if you have agency as the root of who you are as a sexual being, and you can put curiosity and humor into it, frequency isn't the answer. There's lots of studies because of course everyone wants a number.
Right.
And I've just seen people that I would describe being in a very healthy sexual life not have a number that's very high compared to others. But I would say that they are sexually vibrant and have you can when you're around a couple and you can just tell they have this like great chemistry.
Yeah.
And it has nothing to do with number. It has to do with connection, authenticity.
Yes. And I hear a lot of times, as girlfriends, we're sitting around and the question comes up, well, how often do you have sex per week with your husband? And it gets into this competition, and it feels like, well, oh my God, am I not doing it enough because, my friend over here does it, 3 times a week. It is not about the frequency, as you just said, but, the quality, for all the reasons you just said. So I think we need to focus on that, not compare yourself to a number or a number that your friends or, someone has, but it's what's authentic and meaningful to you.
And what I found is if someone's going to the place they want to know a number and they're partnered, and usually that's rooted in someone saying that they're not having enough sex, or them comparing themselves that they're not having whatever enough is. It would be, I love to start with, let's not look at the number, let's look at like your interest and your connection.
Right.
And I feel like that, even though that may not sound as fun or it may not be as easy to compare, you can see a difference when a question is, so how much pleasure do you have? As opposed to like, how many times a week do you have sex? Like how many times do you feel pleasure during a week with your partner? That changes the tone. And a lot of times you can see the difference of how hard it is to answer. So then we default back to a number must mean something. But I think we all can say that there are examples of having a high frequency and not having quality sex.
Right. Okay, so let's talk about here. I'm in my late 40s and I feel like my libido has totally disappeared. Is this normal and can I get it back?
Mm-hmm. It is normal. And I don't love the word normal, so I'm going to switch it to
exactly.
It is
What's
common. Yeah, it's common. Yes, you can, but it starts with you have to release your view that there is a right kind of libido to have. And then a wrong one. And I've never, in all my years of doing this, had anyone come to me and say, I have the right kind of libido. Everyone thinks it's like our sexual culture is set up to have a right and a wrong, and no one's ever right. So you have to release that. You have to unlearn it, and you have to release that where you are right now in your libido is bad, wrong, and broken. What it is not where you want it to be. And I always check in. Like, is this something that you personally want to change, or do you feel pressure to have this feel different? That's a different conversation if it's the second one. But if it's the first one, if it's like, yeah, I want to have sex more, like this feels terrible that this feels taken from me. Mm-hmm. And with that, then it's like, okay, great. And although it may feel weird, that I feel really hopeful whenever I have someone saying that to me. I'm like, okay, great. And also, we are going to need to do, and I call it a spider web of desire, that there's a lot of places. It's rarely one thing that has changed, that has made your relationship with, and I call it desire, not libido, change. And so we need to go on an expedition. We need to really figure out it. Let's look at your relationship. That's a huge factor in a lot of cases. That's something with the relationships in their life have changed, and it affects how they are and how they're feeling about who they are in their vibrancy. I like looking at somebody's vibrancy outside of sexual connection. Usually there's a link between the two as well, and one is more profound than the other. And there's sometimes that we don't even, with clients that I work with, we don't even talk about anything overtly sexual for a couple of months. We are working on vibrancy outside of their life and looking at those places. Of course, we do a full health. And as we know in the menopause space and perimenopause space, that looking at where your hormones are and how your body is functioning is really important. And there is a lot out there of what you can do and the options you have to have pharmaceutical intervention to make a difference. I like finding out, like, are you having good sex? There are some times, and I'll ask these two questions, and a lot of people aren't asked it, so it can be hard to get to the answers. Are you having good sex? And do you think you're good at sex? And again, I don't even love the word good, but we have to start where we start.
Right.
And I think I usually learn a lot by how people answer that. And then it's, what are you interested in? And what are your sleep habits? It's amazing how much sleep is related to how your libido is and how your desire is.
Yeah.
And then we start tweaking. We start looking at what are the changes that are going to make a difference. And if pain, or if it doesn't feel good to have sex, which is different than not wanting to have interest in sex, and then we go to like products and other interventions that make a difference too. But I first just want. And it's a great question, and I'm asked it quite a bit about like can like, it feels like my libido is dead. It is dead, and it's just sayonara. It's never coming back. It's just I can't even think of a case of someone I work with that it didn't come back.
Oh, that's encouraging, and certainly as you alluded to, there's things you can do. There's products. There's tools. In fact, part of what we do at Joylux is with our suite of products is intended to help women regain that desire, to help with their intimacy. But before I got into Joylux, one of the things I was fascinated about was sex toys. And sex toys had this, not so much today, but certainly, I don't know, call it 15 years ago, a negative connotation. Like if you have a sex toy, there must be something wrong with you, or it's for people that are, weird or different. And that's the farthest thing from the truth. It's, in my opinion, and it inspired me to create Joylux, is a sex toy allows you to help understand what turns you on, what gives you pleasure, how what works for you, and then you can better communicate that to a partner. So with that, my next question comes from one of our listeners who has actually never used a sex toy before. So I'd say, go right now, run to that store,
Yes.
get on Amazon, whatever, and get one. But from your professional opinion, what should they look for, and where would one begin?
Mm-hmm. And again, I double down on thanking you for it. As a therapist, there's a limit to how much I can do talk therapy and I can instruct, but there's a limit to where I can go. And I'm so appreciative of companies like yours that are bridging that gap for us, and that I can send them to this to try, because I think one of the scariest parts of when your libido has changed and changed significantly is people are afraid to have hope that it could feel good again. And I agree with that. And that's also how I feel about when you're starting off with sex toys. And I'm so grateful too that there is so much easier of a way to get sex toys. I remember back in the day, like back when I was in LA, the Hustler store was one of the few places that you could go.
You felt icky walking into that store.
Oh, yeah.
Oh gosh,
Yes.
But now, I mean, they're beautiful stores, and there's, beautiful online experiences.
Mm-hmm. And it's even just more almost expected too. It's so much more normalized.
Yeah.
And
isn't it, numbers, isn't it something like 63% of women, last I heard, have a sex toy or use a sex toy? Is that
yes,
something like that? Okay.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
And 100%, but
yeah. And for some, this may feel controversial, but I like it that actually in the age of when someone gets their first sex toy is also lowering as well. And so we have a younger generation that is learning their body through sex toys as well. And every case is different, but I'm glad that it's not just for those of us that are much, much older. I also love that there are so many options now. It actually can be like you can be paralyzed by choice, and you can go onto sex websites, like sex toy websites, and like, oh my gosh, there's like 12 categories, and then there's 30 within each category, and I love that there's a problem of so much of abundance, but where do you start, and how do you know what your body's going to do? And some of this is with the privilege of if you have the financial means to try several different, that's what I recommend. And I like for people to, if there's like 3 that I recommend, and I'm not recommending a specific one, but you want to look for a toy that has a variance of vibration levels, and that can be very different in at least 2 speeds, but I love it when there's 3. So try something that when the description is that you can have a variance so that and within that there is, like, you want to understand the intensity. And that's something that I also learned through years of doing this, that I had a misconception that most vulvas and clitoral systems wanted the same level of stimulation. And I realized, oh my gosh, there is just like there's a variety of what vulvas look like, there's a lot of variety of what vulvas want. And so you want a variety, and you're not going to know until you're doing this. And even if you had sex toys before, when you're in perimenopause and menopause, it can change what your clitoral system needs and wants. And so it's great to restock and try again. So I like having a variety of rhythms, a variety of intensities, and then a variety of like looks, because it's really interesting how people can have a reaction to how a toy looks. So if it looks like a penis, it can be really off-putting to some, and others are like, if it looks like a tulip, that's going to be so weird for me. And so let there be a variance, and trust your reaction to it, and play to your strengths, and really have this be, I actually think like it's a wonderful exercise of agency. It's like, look at a sex toy and how does your body respond when it sees it? If it's interested, if it's curious, if it feels open, then put that in the like wish list and think it through, that maybe I want this. And if you have a negative reaction to it, don't bother at this point.
You're so funny, because when I saw the tulip, I know exactly what you're thinking. Like, that is so weird. Why would I put a tulip down there?
Right. Yes. And some are like, I love it. It's so cute. It makes me
no
feel
one will know what it is. My kid thinks it's a flower by my bed.
Right. Exactly. And I'm so grateful that we live in an era where we get to have choice like that, and that we even know that there's a choice, because even the subtle messaging that we get when there are hundreds of sex toys to choose from, although it can be overwhelming and expensive, we are given the message, you get to do this. This is okay to do. This is good for you to do. This is smart for you to do. And I'm grateful we live in an era that's the case. The other part of it, in looking at sex toys is knowing how to clean them and how to use them as well. I really love companies that have videos on their website that talk about cleaning and talk about storage, and even like have videos that go through the instruction of it. There's a lot out there. And the other part of it too is I love checking lists and articles. So I'll just Google top 10 sex toys of a certain year. And it doesn't always have to be the year that we're in. Sometimes I'll go back and just, 2020, what was the top list? And most of them are still around and are classics. And then the last thing I'll say is, on that aspect, is battery or plug-in or chargeable. Those three are the options. And if you're somebody that's just not going to have batteries around or keep up with your battery charge, the worst thing is if you're in the middle of pleasure and your batteries die. It's terrible. So don't do that. And maybe that's not your thing, or if you're going to lose your charger or whatever, or if you can't have a plug that's close to where you'll be using it, just know the logistics of your environment. And those are three different options to try too.
Yeah. One thing I actually want to talk a little more about when it comes to vibrators and our sex toys is back in the day, like, our grandparents, our mothers, it was, the education was all around, it was the G-spot that gave women pleasure. And the G-spot, and here I have my little handy vagina. I just needed something to bring this puppet up. Conversation.
Love it.
Perfect conversation. Is that, the G-spot was inside, and it was the stimulation of the G-spot that created orgasms. And then there was a body of work that said, no, it's really about the clitoris, which is actually on the external of the vagina. So here in the vulva, here's your clitoris. And there's a school of thought that it's the clitoris that provides, if that's stimulated, that's what would provide pleasure and orgasms. I would love, from your professional opinion, is it the clitoris, or is it the G-spot, or is it all of it?
Yeah, it's what's so fabulous is that we have the potential of pleasure in so many places, and there's a toy for every single place that you could enhance, and there's just so much fun exploring. And you don't know. I mean, I think our bodies have a natural inclination to a certain area. For some, it is like the inside of you, where because it was named by a man. I often don't like to say G-spot, but I'll say potential of pleasure area inside of you. And there are some women that is just a pretty easy lift to get to pleasure, or to get to like orgasmic pleasure. For others, it is direct clitoral stimulation. And what I love even more is, and this is a book that I highly recommend, is called The Clitoral Truth by Rebecca Chalker. It is a classic. She has a second edition, and it is my absolute favorite place to teach. And about the clitoral system. And she's one of the first people who really said, it's not just about that part that you're talking about, which is the glands. That's the outer part that has that part that has so many nerve endings to it. It's actually a system underneath it. And I'm really grateful in the past 10 years that you see so many 3D models of the bulbus and the legs that have come out from it. And what's so extraordinary about that is not just that is accurate, and we need to have accurate anatomy, but it's actually, when you know all of our anatomy, then you know every part of it has the potential to work together in different combinations to create pleasure. So it may be both. Like that's why for some people, if they like oral sex and they like having their glands stimulated, but they also like penetration and in their G spot area, then they have the potential for both, and working together is huge. There's some people so part of if you want to hold that up again too. So if you point to the glands, and there's the hood over top of it, up higher. Yeah. The glands. Yeah. And the hood that's over it. Yeah. That looks like a little, like a sweatshirt hoodie. Sometimes women like to have that pulled back, or it pulls back naturally. Yeah. And that's what's really, yes. Yeah. And that's really interesting. You can play around that with hands, and also with a sex toy, to see how sensitive or how much more that it needs. And again, there's no vulva or no clitoral system is wrong. It's just you got to learn it. And also, in that same place, there is up from the hood, and you don't see this much there. But if you were to take from the glands and then the hood, and you go up to the top of that puppet, we have a shaft. That often people will feel it feels like your nose, the bridge of your nose, but it's just a much smaller part of it. That is, really comparable to the penis shaft. Yes. And there's a lot you can do with pleasure with that on direct stimulation, or to the left or to the right. And it's really gratifying when I'm working with a woman and she is exploring in that way, in between sessions, and comes back and reports to me so the left side is where it's at. Who knew? The left side of my shaft was where I wanted it, where everything felt so good. I always thought it had to be the very point of it. Or when someone has a very sensitive clitoral glands, then you put a blanket over it, or a sheet, or a towel, or over your pajamas or something, and it's no longer nearly as sensitive, and you can still find pleasure. And we're just not taught those things. And if you don't have friends or girlfriends, or if you're afraid of Google searching, which a lot of people are, and I understand that, then you don't learn it. And so we just have to explore in that way.
Going back to the sex toys, there are, toys that specifically focus on clitoral stimulation or penetrative stimulation. So like you said earlier, get a variety and test them out and see what your body reacts to the best.
Yeah. And be open to it. And when your body tells you no, it's not, try very hard to not see it as a negative. It's just a data point, and it's just leading us closer to the yes. And we just, sometimes the yeses come quickly, and sometimes it takes a while.
Okay, we're only on question number 5, and I have so many, and we've already been talking for 40 minutes. I would like to keep going for at least a couple more minutes, 5 minutes or so, and because these questions are so great. So this is one that is very near and dear to us, because we created a product to help with this. But it says, what to do if sex is painful now that I am in perimenopause or approaching menopause?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this is very real. And I would say when we get to this topic, in a room, if I'm doing a workshop, or when I'm working with somebody one-on-one, it feels like if we could change the mood, the light changes, the mood changes, because there's just a lot of grieving attached to the experience of having pain during sex, especially if you're wanting to have sex, or if you're wanting to feel pleasure, or if you're partnered wanting to do that it can just feel terrible to have your body, which it feels like, betraying you and working against you. And so one of the first things I do is just allow there to be room for grieving and anger and sadness about that. It doesn't help to avoid the feelings that would be attached to it. And then we move as much and as quickly as we can into curiosity. And as you said, we start looking at where more the origin. Sometimes it's psychosocial, sometimes it is relationships, sometimes it's trauma, sometimes it is being afraid of how your body has changed too. And if we remove that, then we look at products that can make a difference. And yours being one of them, that has just brought so much relief and help to so many people, and hope as well. Looking at lubrication, like looking at what is the origin of that pain, if you know it. And again, as I spoke, like there's limits to where sex therapy can help. A lot of times what I am is I feel like I'm a hub of information. And then I send people out, try this product, try this person. Pelvic floor therapy is, they just do incredible work. And I was actually just talking to a client today, and I brought it pelvic floor therapy, and she's like, "What is that?" And it amazes me still that so many people don't know what this specialty is. And as just a small soapbox, I'll say I think everybody, even if you're not having pain during sex, should have a relationship with a pelvic floor therapy and go at least one time. Because there is a chance that when you are in perimenopause or menopause, that you could experience pain for the first time. There's a lot of people experience pain and they're not in perimenopause and menopause too. But there is a chance, a rise that this could happen as your body is changing. And then, looking at hormonal replacement therapy can make a difference. Again, as I said, like different kinds of lubrication, different positions can make a difference as well. There's also a lot of help and relief that people get by using something called dilators, and seeing if it's anything that it's about a muscle tightening or where the pain is actually originating. Those can make a very big difference. And sometimes, and this is the case that I find a lot too, and this goes back to why I think sexuality tells you who you are in a very deep way, is when we're looking at it, when I'm asking a woman, where does the pain originate? There's a lot of times that they have a hard time answering. And there's a disconnect between our body, our psyche, and our sexuality. And so we do the work to connect it and discover, like, where is the pain? Is it your vaginal opening? Is it inside? Is it about width, or is it about lack of lubrication? Is it about fear? Because it happens, in a similar way to erectile dysfunction. Once you've had the experience of sex hurting once, it can become a confounding effect that you're now afraid to have sex, or your partner's afraid to have sex because they don't want to hurt you. Then everyone's avoiding it. Then you're not addressing it. You're not really aware of what's happening. And so it can become this pile of like, I don't know, and nothing's going to fix this. And you just want to go to a trusted person, and you want to go to a therapist who is specifically trained, if you're going to go talk therapy route in sexuality, and then has a good network to send you to.
And I think the important thing to just emphasize is this is normal. Mm-hmm. Many women who are going through perimenopause, menopause experience pain with intercourse. And it's important you identify what that pain is, but often it can be associated with dryness, which is directly related to that drop in estrogen and how it impacts our vaginal tissue. Mm-hmm. And so there are things you can do. Again, we love the VFit device to help with that, the Let's Spin lubricant, all these wonderful tools. Mm-hmm. But just know you're not alone. There's a lot of women experiencing this.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. And I want to do like a little plug for hysterectomies, because a lot of times in our discussions about the changes in menopause, there's an assumption that it's happening through our body's timing, and that's not always the case. It can be like chemical menopause or surgical. And I had a hysterectomy almost a year ago. And you can imagine the discussions I had with my doctors about, I want to make sure my pleasure, I want to do everything I can to preserve who I am as a sexual being on the other side of this. And we did a lot of co-creating decisions along the way. And even though I know I'm in this space, I'm teaching this, I'm learning, I had a healthy fear. One, because I know how often this can happen. And because I know how much it can affect your mental health when your sexual wellness changes. Yes. And you can't. And one of the things that's just so different and hard about perimenopause and menopause is that there's just not a lot of control in it, and you can't predict a lot of what's going to happen, like with pain during sex, and you don't really know. Your body just starts behaving differently, and for some it's instant, and for some it's a slow burn to it. And any change that you have, even if it feels like it's it's something that's being taken from you, it's really important to look at it as, and this has changed, but I still have agency. I still have the ability to be in control of other ways and to work with that, whether it's pain or a lubrication issue. And gratefully, we live in a time where the conversation is a lot better. We don't have a lot of trained professionals yet, but we are growing in that, and women are our grassroots efforts, and leaders like you that are giving us options. And you don't. Probably my best advice is don't put up with. You're just going to have to put up with this.
No, absolutely not. That's right. Okay, because we're running close on time here. Yeah. I want to end with, again, we had so many great questions. We'll have to have you back. But I want to end with one that I think so many people struggle with. I even have struggled with this. And I am, someone that's in the industry that knows more about sex than most people. And but when you are in a relationship and you're with your partner and you want to have an open dialogue about your intimacy and what you could do different or do better, or how to, reignite that spark, just have that dialogue with your partner, that it can be so intimidating, and it could feel awkward, and it can feel like, oh my God, he's going to judge me or she's going to judge me. So how do you start and engage in that conversation without being embarrassed?
Yeah, I love this question too. And I'm going to give a bunch of different ideas and options. And so it's not going to be sequential. It's just going to be to pick what works for you and what you need. So one of the things is that you want to have a we approach. And a lot of times we come to this topic with I need this, or you aren't doing this. And that is not the way to open up a conversation that has curiosity as the foundation of it. So it's this is really important for us, and this is an important part of our relationship. And I'd love for us to have a space that we can have this conversation. That's one thing.
I love that. I never even thought about that. But yes, that makes sense.
It's team. I even have some couples that we name their name. We name their team. And so they will, even outside of a conversation about sexuality, and then they can use it inside of sexuality. And then it's also like learning how to have the skill of vulnerability and naming it. Like, I'm nervous to say this, but it's important for me, for us to
being open with your partner that you are nervous, or
that's right.
Feel, okay.
Yeah, because what you want, especially in a relationship that has good communication, is that should be the like ding, ding, ding. I need to show up differently. Like this, my partner's about to get very vulnerable with me, and I need to show up for it in a vulnerable place. Or if I'm not going to be able to show up for it, this is not the right time. I need to say that, like, oh, that means so much to me. And can we do this in an hour or half an hour or whatever it is? Because you don't want to force yourself, if you're not going to be your best self, to have a topic, especially if this is something that's pretty new for a couple to talk about.
Yes.
And then it's really giving space for you to say, this is what I'm wanting or not wanting to do anymore. I'm interested in this. And do you need time to sit with it? If you do, great. We'll revisit it. If you want to do research on what I'm talking about, or if you want to research it together, we can do that. It's not forcing an answer at the time, unless the person has a pretty ready response. And it's also like, if you're going to be somebody who is wanting to open up the discussion, which I hope that you are, you want to also know what your partner needs. And so I always talk with my couples about, what do you need to feel safe in order to open up emotionally? And you provide it for your partner, and you become a partner that understands the safety needs of others. And when you do those three things, it makes a very big difference in no matter what topic you're having, but especially about sexuality. I have this story of a book coming out in the fall, and I tell the story about, I'm in this space, and I talk about this all the time. And so you can imagine how hard it is to be partnered with me, and how that can be difficult. Like I have a high expectation of how people are going to communicate. And I was talking with my partner and did all the techniques. and said I was nervous and, feeling vulnerable, and was this a good time to talk about it? And he was like, yeah. And I said what I was interested in exploring. And he's like, what the? And he had this huge response. And I was like, whoa, like shut down. And all of my therapeutic techniques that I teach everybody went flying out of the bathtub. And also, I wanted to have a lot of compassion for him and for me in this process of like, it's just not easy. There's nothing benign about sexuality. And so bring grace into the topic as well when you are wanting to open up a discussion of something new. And I really encourage you to do it in different kind of locations, even though you want it to not, like, some people need a distraction. So I say it's parenting. I say this for parenting advice and also sex conversations, is the car can be one of the best places to have a hard conversation because you're not staring at each other like lions looking at each other, and there's a distraction and there's movement and there's more of an ability for, if there's silence and need for pause and reflection, it's not nearly as stale feeling as if you're on the couch, just like, at each other.
Wow. That's such great advice. So with that, I'm going to wrap this up, but I want everybody to know that Dr. Juliana is available to do remote sessions, because I believe you said you're in Kentucky. When I first met you, I thought you were in Seattle. I was so excited to come to your office. But if you look at her beautiful screen, that is her office. So you can book a session with her. Go to her website. Please tell us what your website is.
It's Juliana.com.
Perfect. You are extraordinary. We love talking to you. And we definitely are going to have you come back, because I still have 20 more questions that viewers asked that we didn't have a chance to. But is there any last word you want to leave us with, or?
Yeah, I'll say this, that sexuality isn't a luxury, it's a necessity, and prioritize it in your life.
Absolutely. Sexual wellness is essential to overall health and well-being. We say that all the time. So with that, I want to thank you again for joining me. You're just a wealth of knowledge and information, and that girlfriend with a PhD. I love it.
Thank you so much.